Hello, everybody. My name's Helen Cooper, and I'm the founder of the Helen Cooper School of Luxury. This is the next in a series of our interviews with entrepreneurs and interesting people from across the luxury and branding society. They're all around about learning from experience. That's a whole focus of the school, in that we have people who are very experienced in real world luxury, as well as those who can teach. And today, I'm really delighted to have Rashmi Sathe involved with us on our conversation. Rashmi is going to tell you an awful lot around her history, her journey as a designer and as an illustrator. And also, of course, as usual, we're led by Shreya Agarwal, one of our great friends and colleagues, who is a content creator and an expert within the luxury branding industry. So with no more ado, I'm going to pass over to Shreya.
Hi, Helen. Thank you once again for a lovely introduction, as always. And welcome, Rashmi. We're delighted to have you on this conversation series with us this afternoon. And why don't we start with opening up the forum and letting you talk a little bit more about yourself, your journey so far, your brand.
Sure. Thank you so much, Helen and Shreya, for inviting me to this. And I'm excited to attend this forum too. So, a little bit about myself is I would call myself a design educator, a fashion designer, and an artist. I think I can call myself an artist with a lot of pride finally, because I was contemplating on it since a year now, whether if I am an artist or if I'm not an artist, but finally I think I've reached that stage now. And I guess my label, Rashmi Sathe, I created my label about 5 years ago, and it was a bespoke designer label. But right now I'm in between or on the threshold, as per se, of recreating it completely. So that's about me so far.
How exciting. So we're right at the cusp of this moment.
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, I'm sure it'd be great to hear more from you about that.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to share it with you.
Yay. Good.
So, Rashmi, as we know that, art and design is at the core of what you do. And you finally have found your space of the calling in the art domain, as per se, if you put forward. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey towards how you figured art, design, and, fashion also coming into it. So, how did the journey begin?
I think it's a pretty complex journey when I think about it. I think as a child, I've always had an inclination towards art and design. And I remember distinctly when I was 10 years old, my mom gifted me her sable hairbrush set. And that for me, I think that gift was very, very important for me. So it was like a family heirloom. I think so, because it was something which was extremely important for her and precious to her. And she gifted that to me. And she used to use it as a child. So and I still have those set of sable hair brushes with me. I haven't really discarded them. So I think that changed my life. And I started painting since then. And one of my favorite artists is Gustav Klimt, even till today. And I remember, so at that point of time, I think I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to just paint all my life. But then when I was in the ninth grade I enrolled for these summer workshops at the Sheetal Design Studio. And these workshops were conducted by Wendell Rodrigues and Hemant Trivedi, so two fashion icons. And I think that changed my life again. And I decided to pursue fashion design. So I think that's how it all started. And then I enrolled in Pune, and then I started working. So I was working with this very interesting designer, and we worked closely with the weavers of Banaras to revive this textile form and to help them develop a self-sustaining economy. And I think this project was very, very important for me, and it improved my understanding of the Indian textiles, because I feel practical information or practical knowledge is more important than theoretical knowledge for me. So I was very keen on joining the core team, the research team, and I got in, and I was lucky, and I think I'm blessed to have done that.
And Rashmi, what year was that in?
It was in 2007.
So you're really at the start of the whole sustainability, one of the sustainability pioneers effectively, which is amazing. Now everybody's talking about it, but you were kind of there at the start before they were talking about it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well done.
Thank you. And it was such an interesting experience to actually be with the weavers, understand their life, because sitting in Bombay and just buying those beautiful saris, I wouldn't know exactly what they went through. And
Goes by,
so,
right?
yeah, and they actually can weave only an inch of a sari per day.
Mm.
And that's how difficult and exquisite the craft is.
Amazing. I think the manufacturing element is something that keeps coming through in conversations that we're having now. I think Aman had mentioned that from the art collection too. You really need to understand the whole manufacturing and production process to be able to be more innovative and more creative, but also to respect that craft as well. So it's fascinating that this is a repeating theme. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes a lot back to the concept of weaving by hand and everything being hand woven and crafted. So as much as slow that process is, but at the end of the day, that's the whole concept of sustainable luxury that we're looking at as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Go ahead, Rashmi.
No,
Tell us more about yours.
No, because when you talk about hand weaving, so in Maharashtra, so the state where I come from, it's known for Paithani saris. That's also hand woven. And as a child, I remember we had visited the place where they would weave Paithani saris, and I was enthralled by the whole process. Looms and looms, and all the artisans sort of weaving it. And again, they told us the same thing, that it takes about an inch for a day, 24 hours, and an inch of the weave. And I think for me, that's also a story.
Right.
The whole sari is a story for me.
That's interesting. It has a lot of stories behind it, from the makers themselves to actually the print and the patterns that are used on them.
Yes.
Yeah.
They also, the weaves, from what I know, they also depict stories in different saris. Like I, just to put in here, as an exciting element. While I was working with a textile designer based out of Calcutta, she used to specialize in this weave called baluchari weaves, which is extremely, Helen, it's extremely expensive, but the whole idea behind it is they weave a story, a snippet. I don't know, it's something to do with mythology element that they take into it, and then they put it on the sari, and it's known for that weave, and it's beautiful. So I mean, Rashmi, coming back to you, the way you mentioned that sari is a story, but yeah, I mean, it does depict a story.
Yes. I love balucheris, and my mom has a balucheri sari, and
wow.
I hope she passes it on to me.
Put your label on that one.
Yeah. I love balucheris.
So after you've been doing some work there, I think you moved into suit making, didn't you?
Yes. So I was working with this designer. His name is Rahul Agasti, and I think I learned a lot from him. The whole art of suit making. And I fell in love with it. The
Quite
whole
different.
fit, yeah. It's minimal, but at the same time, the fit is so important for a suit. A well-tailored suit, I think, is the best thing a man can ever have, I feel. And I shouldn't be so cynical or so judgmental in a way, but now whenever I see a man in an ill-fitted suit, I go like, oh, not it. This is not it. I shouldn't be that way. I think I'm a culprit in that sense, but I think I really learned the craft of fine suit making from him. And then I worked on period films like Jodha Akbar. So I was a chief illustrator for the film. And then I started my journey as a design educator. So I was working with Pearl Academy and ITM. And I think this for me was a learning experience, because initially I had this inhibition of talking with a large crowd, And I think I overcame that. And I also happened to learn a lot while teaching. And this balance for me, I think somewhere down the line was very important. So I never was a full-time teacher. I was always an adjunct faculty or a part-time teacher of and always working in the industry.
Mm.
So,
did you find doing that actually helped you to deliver more interesting content for your students? Did you find your influence of your real world working actually improving what you could tell to the students in your courses?
yes, I think so. I think for me, that's a very, very important aspect, that whatever I'm doing right now, currently in the industry, for me, and imparting whatever I'm doing now to the students is very, very important,
Mm.
because the students need to understand what the trends in the industry, the present trends.
Mm.
And that really helped me, and even today it helps me. So I because I'm a practicing performance artist as well now, I'm teaching at Equal Institute Lab, and I integrate performance art with human sciences, and I
Mm.
teach that there, and they find it extremely interesting. And for me too, it's equally interesting, because I get to understand what their perspective is.
Yeah.
So,
Very good. Very interesting.
and then I started with my own consultancy, and I collaborated with designers. And I was again lucky enough. I always say I'm lucky or blessed enough to have collaborated with Ritu Bhosle, and we showcased our collections at New York Fashion Week. So we showcased our collections for 3 consecutive years,
Wow.
and that again was a learning experience for me. And New York as a city really inspires me. I think I equate it somewhere to Mumbai. I think not equate it, but draw parallels to somewhere
Mm.
in Mumbai. It somehow has this soul, has this melting pot of different cultures, and I
Mm.
really love the city. So
Yeah, I love New York.
yeah, yeah. So that's my journey, and here I
Yeah.
am now.
Yeah. It's amazing. So, what is the sort of the design ideology that you feel that obviously Mumbai is your origin and so on. How's that influencing your designs and your art generally?
Hmm. I feel that my art has a lot of influences, and my design too has a lot of influences. I think my art and design practice is very complex, I would say, and I think that originates again from Mumbai, because I grew up in a multicultural environment. And I think because the city has such a cultural blend of communities, I think that's somehow seeped into my art and design practice.
Mm.
I grew up also reading a lot about Indian mythologies, and I still read a lot of Devdutt Patnaik.
Right.
Rituals for me also are pretty interesting.
Mm.
Rituals in a scientific way, rather, or as a societal behavior form, and not as religious aspects or religious behavior.
Yeah.
For me, I look at it as, yeah, behavior as in a probably a very anthropological point of view. So that I think inspires my art and design practices.
Mm.
And fictional characters from storybooks, especially Sherlock Holmes. So
I
so
haven't
those,
seen too many deerstalker hats in your collections.
no, unfortunately not.
Now that would be interesting.
Yeah,
Whole new line there.
yeah, true that. That's a very good idea. So
So, Rashmi, there are different elements of where you've drawn your inspiration from, and it's quite exciting when we think about bringing together mythology concept and also having a little bit of suspense in the work, because I've gone through your work, and there are different dimensions of it. And you were part of this inspiration, and then you took it forward when you made a conscious decision of pursuing your fine arts career in Switzerland. So there we see that you went to this another culture altogether. You were in US, then India, and then you were back to this Swiss culture, which is absolutely precise, I would say. So why don't you tell us more about it? Because I'm sure Swiss would have been a different experience altogether for you.
yeah, I think as you said, I think you rightly put it, precise. I think that's what they are. Yeah, and
Like
I
a
look,
clock, like a Swiss clock, they say.
yes,
There's a
yes,
reason they're from there.
yeah. Oh yeah, true that. Maybe we don't have time for that, but there's a very funny story. I'll share it later. But I think Switzerland is also a very open country. I felt it's a very open country. Again, it's open to diverse cultures, and it's the birthplace of performance art. So your Dada artist
Wow.
started there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, it was very, very interesting, and it has a lot of these alternative art spaces. So the alternative art scene is extremely happening there, and I got a chance to present my performances there at these alternative art
Wow.
spaces, and I think that changed my perspective towards art and design. And the Bauhaus design movement, I think it has its roots in Germany and Switzerland. So for me, I never knew about it, honestly. And and when I went there, I realized what a great movement that was by in itself. And I somehow would want to fuse that or integrate that in my design ideology now. And at the school at HSLU, I learned 3D printing and laser cutting and performance art and silk screen printing. And so I think I sort of had this blend of design and art already, especially with the 3D printing and the laser cutting. So I created a lot of stencils, and I created stencil art, which I plan to link to production, which is again very, very design oriented. So yeah, that was my takeaway, I think, from Switzerland, and I hope to go back there again.
Oh, we hope so that we hope that you go back again. Um, so now, as you mentioned, that there is this element of inspiration that you've taken from Switzerland as well, right? And you already would want to inculcate in your own design sense and art sense for that matter. So how do you think your global experience, um, when mixed with Indian aesthetics, in terms of your fascination towards mythology, uh, bringing that together with these two design, with these two inspiration to your design element, is it going to help your art or your performance art or any element of the work that you do more globally adaptable?
Mm. I think so. And when I look back at it, so when I went there, I had taken my Indian culture for granted, I feel, because it was
Mm-hmm.
there. I was around it all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
when I went there, I realized, so it was like an insider standing outside, looking inside again. So I think that's what triggered my interest in Indian culture and rituals again. And in fact, my performance, which was on the edge of the threshold, it relates to this Narsimha, this mythological character of
Yeah.
Narsimha, who's half human and half animal. And then I took it, I sort of looked at it in a modern point of view, as if what am I going through then?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm neither here, neither there. I'm on this threshold all the time. So, and how do I look at it globally? So all the people around me, so they have different cultures around them, and they're part of, say, Zurich or Lucerne and all these international cities, and they're neither here, neither there, somewhere down the line. So this whole aspect of translocality has sparked my interest. And currently, I am working on two projects, in fact, three rather, but when it comes to understanding Indian crafts and art. So I'm working on a project called The Red Thread. It's in collaboration with Elizabeth Caroline Eaton, and she's a religious scientist and a photographer from Switzerland. And we're looking at this unique idea of knots and threads in the Indian culture and in the Swiss culture. And what are the similarities and what are the dissimilarities? And this whole idea of consumerism around with it. So we sort of did this performance at the ACT Festival in Lucerne, wherein we sort of braided or made a garland of all leftover flowers or leftover things that we all consume. And it was a huge garden, and it was a durational performance. So we will see how it goes ahead now, because having a garland is such an important practice in India
Mm-hmm.
versus Switzerland. And so what does it symbolize in India, and what does it symbolize in Switzerland? So that's what I'm doing. And my second project is, because I started questioning a lot of my values or a lot of things that I took for granted before. I'm looking at dismantling patriarchal hierarchies in a way, because
Okay.
like simple things like the women serving food to men first whenever there's a party, a house party, and the women then having food later. I think now I'm questioning all these things. And I want to not come up, and I'm working on, as I said, I'm on this threshold of repositioning my brand or my label. So I want to integrate fashion and performance art, dismantling these hierarchies.
It's interesting because there's an awful lot of talk now around empowering women and giving them greater and more equal opportunities. In fact, it's one of the Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. So it's interesting how you're looking at it from a different angle in terms of the societal norms and the rituals that are reinforcing some of that inequality. But also in working with local craftspeople, quite often they, I guess, tend to be women, don't they?
Yes.
And so, when we work more with local craft in creating luxury items, we're actually helping by default to empower the women within the community to have greater financial contribution and therefore more independence, I guess.
Totally.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Right. I'd love to see a garland made of trash.
I will share a few pictures. I have a few pictures of it.
I'd love to see that. That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
It's interesting how you're fascinated by different aspects of your own life in terms of your journey, your travel, your values and cultures, which again brings back to me the same point that Helen, that we were discussing about the other day, that how knowing about different cultures actually make you more aware about your own culture. And I mean, I've had a similar experience, and Rashmi, hearing it from you, that it makes me believe more on this aspect, that how important it is to be culturally diverse and know about different cultures as well. And I'm sure it inspires everybody in one way or the other. Now, understanding, Rashmi, you're so fascinated by fashion brands or brands as per se, okay, and you've always, storytelling has been very crucial to your work, right? Whether it's getting inspired and creating a story behind the art that you really like, or the design that you're creating, or a weave that you're talking about. So how do you plan on incorporating the concept of storytelling towards brand building, or the element of storytelling in a brand?
So I've grown up, as you put in, I've been fascinated by storytellers and storytelling, and for me, brands like Comme des Garçons, they really stand out for me. And this whole idea of blurring lines between art and fashion, and this very edgy experimental fashion, blurring lines between body and clothing. So the stories at Comme des Garçons, every collection, the collection of the Met Gala, the Met that they had, I think for me that's very, very important. Or even the Taj luxury group of hotels, the story is so incredible, and it's at the same time it's aspirational. I grew up looking at the Taj heritage hotels, and right in town, that's what we call in Mumbai, the town, and I always wanted to work with them. And they have such a fabulous story about how he was denied entry at one of the clubs, and that's the very reason he started the Taj luxury group of hotels. And the whole idea of decolonizing luxury places, I think it started from there. It started with him.
And quite often it just takes that one spark, doesn't it, of something which you either are unhappy about, dissatisfied with, or want to emulate in some way, and then it forces a change, and that becomes the driving force behind you. And it's almost like once you found your purpose, you can then go on with that story through the heart and the thread of everything that you then do in the brand. And luxury obviously is built very strongly around stories.
Emotions, yes.
It's about inviting people into a world that they wouldn't otherwise get to.
Yeah. And Once Upon a Time, by Chanel, by Karl Lagerfeld, actually, it's a movie by Karl Lagerfeld. And I fell in love with the film because it actually tells the story. It tells a story about Chanel in such a brilliant, in maybe 20 minutes, 19 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's an extremely powerful film.
Yeah. I think it's just such a core element that, whenever anybody is looking at brands that they love, there's something about the story that they connect with, I think.
It's a story that takes you back, definitely.
Yeah.
It's a few stories that actually make you associate with the brands more strongly than the other brands that you might not even feel that's association with. So, Rashmi, on that topic, if we talk about how do you plan on, bringing together this concept of storytelling for luxury brands? Maybe we talk about luxury brands in Indian market right now. We have brands who are coming up. Many of them, they're not aware about their story, or it's a second or third generation brands that we're looking at who've eventually forgotten the story. How do you think on weaving this concept of storytelling into brand, the luxury brands that they want to create, or they're already there in the market?
I think brands or individuals rather need to be aware of their autobiographies. Where are they coming from? What is the purpose? What drives them? And even when I teach, I think I have this very important element of autobiographical work. Where are you from?
That's interesting.
What are your roots? What are your values? And I think that's very, very important in the creative process also. So where do you get your raw materials from? Where is your design soul coming from? And if they need to revisit that, and if they revisit that, understanding their own histories, their own diversity, their own migration patterns. Because when we discussed about, even in class, when I discuss about where are you from, a lot of migration patterns emerge. And I think that's very, very important. And I guess brands also need to look at it from within and start from the migration patterns and then their history. And I think I'm sure they would get there then.
And that's unique to them. I think this is the thing where everybody tries to copy something that's already out there, where actually what's more interesting is their own unique experience. And I think if you start on the classic golden circle starts with the why in the middle. And so why are you doing this? Why are you here? What has gone on beforehand to get you to this point? Then how are you actually going to be able to express that story in fabulous and relevant contemporary ways? And then you get to the what are you going to do? And quite often people are looking at it from the other way around, and they see, oh, I want to design a handbag. Well, okay, fine. Everyone wants to design a handbag, but well, what are you doing that's different? Why are you going to be here? What are you actually delivering to the world that is going to be something they don't normally get from anybody else? What's your story that makes it unique? So I think when we're looking at creating luxury brands, as you're quite rightly saying, it comes from within. It doesn't come from observing externally. And often in luxury, you don't even consider that you have competitors. They're actually people who are just alternate brands, alternate stories that might want to attract you instead. So storytelling is, I guess, the fundamental, and what you're saying here is absolutely right for me.
Anything that you would want to add on that, Rashmi? Any brands that you really like in terms of storytelling format?
As I said, I love Comme des Garçons and Chanel for me, Karl Lagerfeld, because I really like the films that he used to direct. I think because they were excellent stories at the end of it. So I really, really love his films. And Taj Group of Hotels will always be my absolute favorite when it comes to the brand value that they have. I think even values are very, very important as to what they stand for, and the kind of things that the CSR projects, that initiatives are so interesting and important to the society. So, and the properties that they have and the service that they have and this whole Indian concept behind it. I think for me, when it comes to hotels, luxury hotels, they're absolutely my favorite.
It's strange, isn't it, that India, it's almost a hidden society for the rest of the world. Nobody really understands it. Very few people have actually got to go there, and the brands don't really make it across the borders right now. So it's understanding what are those fundamental building blocks that are needed to make it something which is going to appeal right around the world and not just within India. So it's a great opportunity as far as I can see. I'm so delighted that you're seeing other cultures and bringing that back into India. And I think the other route is also valuable, that India and Indian luxury production is amazing. We need the branding to really support that. And the stories are so unusual because they're so related to India that nobody really has heard about, that it will be interesting. You know, people are waiting for new stories because they've heard the other ones so many times now. So yeah, I think her story there is critical, and India happens to have a lot of really great stories.
Yes. Yeah, India is a culturally diverse and a rich country, and it has a huge culture history around it.
History,
And
yes.
yeah, yes. So me too. I'm looking forward to the new luxury brands that would come up in India, and I'm excited about them.
I'm sure there's just so many brands right now who are wanting to become more than what they currently are.
Yeah.
And I'm sure storytelling actually plays a very, very crucial role in it. Because a brand without story is, it's empty, I feel.
It's a commodity. I think
commodity.
branding is fundamental to luxury, and
you need to go back to story, whether it's Yves Saint Laurent, whether it's Chanel, whether it's Christian Dior. Everybody has a story, and it's the person that you're associated with initially, and when they're no longer there, then the brand building obviously takes forward basis on the story that they've lived. So I am sure that storytelling is something that is extremely crucial for brands. And we hope that we have some really exciting stories to hear from Indian luxury brands in the coming times. Rashmi, on that note, what is something that you would like to, just one tip that you would want to leave with our future aspiring entrepreneurs who might be watching this?
One tip. Maybe very difficult to give just one tip. The most important.
It's always difficult.
Yeah.
One advice. We can take two. No worries.
I think for me it is look within. I would always say look within. What is your purpose, and why do you want to do what do you want to do? Basically, I think look within for me. Your autobiography plays a very, very important role. So look within would be a very important tip that I would want to give to the entrepreneurs, because for me too, I can relate it personally to me, because so far I've always been like a bespoke designer label wherein I was catering to the weddings and catering to everything possible. And when I looked within, I'm sort of repositioning it now. And I realized the importance of looking within. So I think that's the tip.
Fascinating.
Beautiful trip. I think that's absolutely necessary, I would say, because in today's time where everybody is doing everything possible, you just kind of get overwhelmed, because you just feel like you can be good at that. You can be catering to that segment as well. And there's just so much happening around us. But it goes back to the same concept that how we need to pick our niche, and that niche can come from something that you are personally good at as well. And I think that's extremely valuable insight from you, Rashmi, for our future entrepreneurs who are, I'm sure, in a difficult state to even decide what should they be choosing right now. So on that note, thank you so much, Rashmi. It was a beautiful afternoon over a lovely conversation. Anything, Helen, that you would love to add?
No, I'd just like to say thank you so much for sharing your journey and your insights with us. I mean, invaluable information and kind of tips there in terms of the things that you need to be thinking about before you even start designing something. Is look at the motivation for it in the first place. I think anybody who wants to get into luxury and just get rich quick, it doesn't happen. Actually, this is about the personal journey and the value, if you like, of what you have by creating a luxury brand is about fulfilling your own personal autobiography and your own mission, rather than, in the end, yes, you might make some money out of it, but at the end of the day, you'll feel like you're fulfilling your own purpose in life, and that's almost invaluable. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks, Shreya, for leading it again so well. And hopefully everybody who's been watching this will also get some further inspiration. If you want to find out any more, then please do go to www.helencooperluxury.com, and you'll find out an awful lot more of what we do and how we can help you.